Well, I'm not in the Mooney today. I'm in a Cessna 150. This is what I did a lot of my training in back in the day. I'm going to take you up in it, and we're about ready to replace the 1970s panel with 2020 technology. But before we did that, I wanted to go up in the 150 as is and get a little bit of footage. So I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time showing footage of the old Cessna 150 and its original panel. I think everybody wants to see what we did to it. And we basically turned it into an all-glass cockpit trainer in a Cessna 150. So it's a little bit overkill, but here's the streamlined panel. So in my previous Mooney videos, I showed a lot of the features of the Garmin GTN 750 Navigator. So for this video, I'll focus in on the three Garmin GI 275 units we have here in the Cessna. Okay, I'm going to start with a ground overview of the GI 275s so that the camera's not bouncing all around in the air. Start with the boot up sequence. You can see how fast the GI 275s boot up. A lot of Garmin splash screens going on there. The PFD, the AHRS is aligning. HSI is booting up, and this is the EIS, the GI 275 in the EIS configuration. Now the fuel remaining here is not reading the wing tank sensors. This is the calculation from the fuel flow transducer. You have to set this every time you do fuel the aircraft, and then the fuel flow transducer subtracts from that and does all your fuel computer calculations. I'm going to leave it at 10 gallons. That's accurate. And I also happen to have the Garmin GTN 750 installed in this aircraft, and that is exactly the reason why we don't have the GI 275 in the MFD configuration, because the 750 is going to give you a moving map. It's going to give you a traffic page. It's going to give you a terrain. It's going to give you weather. So it's basically all the things that an MFD would provide, and it's not really necessary to do this with the GI 275s. The interesting thing is you can completely replace a six-pack and be IFR compliant with just these two instruments, the PFD and the HSI. The PFD replaces your airspeed indicator, your attitude indicator, your turn coordinator, your altimeter. It also has heading here.
Terrain system test, okay.
Now that the terrain systems test, you can see I also have synthetic vision. I gotta turn this CDI off here. Okay, clear that up so you can see everything. Said there's an altimeter. There's the vertical speed indicator is this gray box here. It'll give you how fast you're climbing or descending. Each GI 275 has an outer and inner knob. The outer knob typically is to change to alternate pages. In the PFD, there are no alternate pages, so the outer knob doesn't do anything. The inner knob is typically to change settings within the screen that you're currently on. The default here is to change the barometric pressure. So if I turn the inner knob, you can see the barometric pressure is changing. But if I touch different parts of the PFD, for example, the airspeed, I can set an airspeed target at the top of the airspeed indication. I can also touch the top of the altitude and set an altitude target. So if I set 2,000 feet, it'll give me a warning chime when I get within 200 feet of that target. And once you're there, if you deviate off the target, it'll give you a chime to let you know that you're not holding altitude. If I touch this heading, I can move this heading bug along this heading tape here at the bottom. So that's pretty much an overview of the PFD. It's your primary flight instrument. It's going to give you most of your data, including your heading, which is also provided by your HSI. Now I'm going to switch over here all the way to the right, which is HSI moving map. So the default here of the inner the inner knob is to change the heading bug. So you can see the heading bug right here. Now if I touch the 1 nautical mile, it's going to change it to zooming in and out of the moving map HSI. It also supports pinch and zoom, so I can zoom in and zoom out with pinches, but I find it a lot quicker and easier to use the inner knob to do that. So right now I'm on a GPS source. If I hit the CDI button and bring up a ILS or VOR and hit the course button, then you can see I can change the CDI needle. If I go back to the heading button, then again I can change the heading button. So I'm going to turn the outer knob to the left once. And this is going to bring me to a HSI page. I'll go back to a GPS source here. If I had a destination programmed in here, this page would give you the time and the distance to your next waypoint. Now it's not showing here right now because I don't have anything set up. But again, the default here is the heading bug, and I could hit the CDI and change the CDI needle with the course. One more turn to the left and you'll see that I have another PFD. Now that is primarily for reversionary mode, so I'm going to go over here to the HSI map, and I have a switch in case I had a failure of my primary PFD. Hitting the reversionary switch automatically puts this HSI into a reversionary mode. And now the outer knob does not do anything. You cannot leave this while it's in reversionary mode. Both of these instruments have to have a battery backup for this to be IFR compliant with that reversionary mode. Going over to the engine instrument system, the SI, this is completely user, well not user, your avionics supplier can set this page up however you want. Right now we have an RPM. This is a little Cessna 150, so if you had something that had a throttle and a prop lever, you'd have an RPM and a manifold pressure up here. And then we have the oil pressure, oil temperature, the fuel gallons. Now this is reading the wing sensors. We installed SEIS wing sensors in this aircraft so that this would be extremely accurate. You can see that I have 5 gallons in each wing at this time, and it happens to match. I'll jump over to the fuel computer. Well, it says 9, but when I started up it said 10, so I must be right on the edge there. So it matches the fuel computer based off of the fuel flow transducer. We have a fuel flow gauge, CHT, so this will give you your max cylinder head temp, and you have the battery condition. At the bottom, this is essentially the annunciator. If there's a problem with anything, this is going to flash at you. Yellow for a caution, red for a warning. The the touchscreen really doesn't do anything on this gauge. Really does, the inner knob doesn't really do anything here as well. The outer knob is going to go to different pages. So if I turn it once, it's going to go to an auxiliary page where if you didn't have enough, if you ran out of space on this primary main screen, you go to the left, to the right once, you see all I had was an EGT left over, and it still gives me my RPM. Not a terribly useful page. It's just basically what's left over that didn't make the prime time here on the main page. So if I go over to the right twice, now I have the EGT graph, and it's going to give you the graph of all of your exhaust gas temperatures. And here is where you access the lean find. So if I hit this lean button and I start leaning the aircraft, it'll automatically, as you're leaning, it'll find which cylinder maxed out first, and it'll give you your delta so that you can set, if you're targeting a certain rich or lean of peak, you can use that. Next page over, as you might guess, is the CHT graph. It's going to give you the cylinder head temperatures for each cylinder. And the final page is the fuel computer. And this is going to provide you the fuel estimate, endurance, and range. And this is using the fuel flow transducer calculation. So as fuel is flowing through that transducer, It's moving the fuel out of the total, adjusting the endurance, adjusting the range. If I have a destination set in the GPS, it'll also provide the fuel, your gallons, your endurance, and range at your destination. So I think one thing that's worth mentioning is comparing this, the Garmin GI 275 EIS to something like the JPI 900. It provides pretty much the same kind of features, but because the Garmin instrument is set up in multiple pages, the font here, the numbers that you see here are much larger in the Garmin gauge because there's less data shown all at once, whereas the JPI 900 would show this, show the graphs, show the fuel data all on one screen, so everything kind of has to be smaller. So this is probably a little bit easier for older eyes, and it's just laid out different. This is your primary information, your graph, and your fuel computer. So you just got to twist a knob to access those things instead of just having it all at once on the screen. And the last thing I'll show real quick is a shutdown here. So I'm going to lose power, and you can see that there's a battery backup on both of these gauges. And you can choose it to stay on, or you can turn it off. You can turn it off, this countdown from 50. If you hit off, it goes straight to 5 seconds and shuts down. Likewise with the HSI. So that's the quick ground overview of the instruments, and let's go airborne and see, do a little review in air. Well, welcome aboard a Cessna 150 with the GI 275s. Already done a review of the Garmin GTN 750 Navigator in my Mooney, so I'm not going to focus on that thing as much. Instead, focus on the GI 275s. Now, the Garmin GTN 750 is not the new XI unit. This is a used GTN 750 that was taken out of an aircraft that got the GTN 750 XI. Now, what you see here is twice the value of the aircraft, but it is a glass IFR trainer. So I mean, you get your pilot's license in this, get your instrument rating in this. Learning on glass, that's where most of the avionics are these days. When I learned, it was all steam gauges and a 6-pack. The kids learning today need to really learn this glass stuff, because that's pretty much where all these avionics are going. Chester County traffic, Cessna 63114 departing runway 29, Chester County. Airspeed's alive.
Chester County traffic, okay, 9150 left downwind 29, Chester County.
Alright, so I'll set the altitude. I'm 2,000 feet. Show traffic page. Traffic in sight. So you can see with the gray box here, I don't know if it shows up very well on the camera. It shows me I'm climbing at 500 feet per minute. I'm at 80 knots, or the altitude is climbing out of 1400 for 2. Alright, that chime that you just heard is the to let me know I'm within 200 feet of my altitude that I set. I'm going to put a flight plan in here. All right. Okay, so now that I have a destination in on this HSI screen, tell me I have a GPS. Tell me I put in Cape May, New Jersey, 72.8 nautical miles away. My ETE is 52 minutes.
Okay, clear 29, Jessica.
And I'm not heading in the right direction, which is fine. I'm going to go over here to the EIS fuel page. So here it's telling me I have 9 gallons, hour and 25 minutes endurance.
Centurion, Bisfield left downwind.
100 nautical mile range. At Cape May, I'm only going to have 3 gallons left, 34 minutes of endurance, and a 48 nautical mile range. But I'm not flying to Cape May. I put it in here just to demonstrate some of these things here. All right, I'm going to try a lean find. This is probably going to be kind of stupid because I'm only at 2,000 feet in this little 150. It shows my fuel flow, which is 6 gallons an hour. And I'm going to do a large pull here, and I'm going to start the lean. All right, so we have first peak showing my 4th cylinder. So it's giving me an indication. First was the 4th cylinder, giving me the temperature. I'm going to start to enrich it. In the parentheses is the delta. So I'll keep turning until I'm climbing 40. Hey, I'll go like 50 Richer Peak. So it just shows how that works. I'm going to turn in on Cape May so I can show you something here. So activated direct course. Now the GI 275 is a baro corrected AHRS, which can feed the GTN 750 for VNAV calculations. So here I've entered 1,000 foot at my destination. I'm going to send that to the VNAV. And go to the utilities VNAV page. It's giving me my vertical target. You can see that I have a VDI show up here in the the primary flight display. I'm going to change this to like 500 foot per minute so the VDI goes away. And in my map HSI, I actually will have the top of descent. Oh, I gotta hit the range here. So if I zoom out, I see a TOD indicating my top of descent, which is a whole heck of a lot easier to see on this map than that tiny little thing. So that chime is letting me know that I have not held altitude. I went back down to 1800. Now I'm not going to make that flight to Cape May, so I'm going to do a direct tube back to Coatesville. Activate. I got to make a left turn inbound. Check for some traffic. Look at my traffic page. I'm in the clear. Make my left turn. I guess I'll reset this altitude to 1800. Just stay there. So I'm turning inbound here with my HSI. I'll go to the other screen again. Distance 12.7 nautical miles. ETE 7 minutes. Cruising right along in this high performance machine. I have to say that I feel right at home flying these instruments coming from the Mooney with the G500 TXI. I mean, the Mooney has the GTN 750, the GNC 255. Certainly I'm missing the autopilot in here, but the G500 TXI, these little GI 275s are almost like if you cut out these gauges from the G500 TXI and made them their own gauges. The G500 TXI has a moving map HSI inset. The PFD certainly is a lot bigger, but it's generally the same data. The EIS information is a tape along the right-hand side. Now it's its own instrument. So flying this 150 really does feel like we've kind of cut some of the instrumentation out of the G500 TXI and made them their own units. So it's actually a pretty comfortable setup for me. Chester County traffic, Cessna is downwind 29 Chester County. Chester County traffic, Cessna is base 29 Chester County. Chester County traffic, Cessna is final 29 Chester County. And a nice full stall landing on a nice early evening to be flying. Thanks for flying along with me. I hope you enjoyed the overview of the Garmin GI 275s. As I said, for me, they're from flying the G500 TXI and the Mooney, these gauges are very similar. Graphically, it's almost like they cut them out and made them their own gauges. So I really like them. 2 thumbs up. Go out and get some installs done.